Today is August 13th, 2025. That makes 10 years since I made my first YouTube channel. I was 11 years old back then, and what I really wanted to post, for the most part, was Littlest Pet Shop videos, and also art-related stuff. I did do both of those things in the short amount of time that my first channel did exist. If you know the lore, I got banned pretty quick. My guess is probably for using copyrighted music. I still don't really know a concrete reason why. But that is not the important part of this story. 10 years ago, which is insane to say, I finally jumped in and made my first YouTube channel. I had wanted to do it for a long time. At that point, probably a couple years. Ever since I figured out what YouTube was, I wanted to do that. I thought it was really cool. And, while I never really made it into a career, probably a good thing, it had a pretty big impact on me as a person, in my life for the last decade, which, again, is crazy to say, because I'm 21 now. Weird. But, yeah, I made that first YouTube account right before I started sixth grade at a new school. And it was making that channel and making my Animal Jam account. Those were the two things that I did, like, I don't know, maybe a day or so, something like that, before I started going to that new school. And in a way, I feel like that was a sort of stepping stone, if that makes any sense. Because, it was me going into new and uncharted territory, starting something fresh. And, both of those things had a decent impact on me as a person. I met friends that I still have to this day through both Animal Jam and YouTube. But yeah, it's been 10 years. I think that's really crazy that it's been that long. I've been watching YouTube for longer, but, when I was a kid, I wasn't the smartest. I didn't know that I could make my own email. I just had my school email, and I was like, well, I don't want to make a YouTube channel with that. Probably a good idea. So yeah, I didn't end up doing it until 2015. But I guess what this video is just kind of like a celebration of everything that this has brought me. 'Cause I don't post a whole lot anymore, and I know that. Life gets busy, you grow up, now I've got a job to worry about, bills to pay, groceries to buy, shit like that. So I don't have the time or the drive that I used to when I was a kid. And that's okay, it happens. I think most people probably end up in that boat after a while. I do still post occasionally on other channels that aren't this one, but this is still my main one. I still use it to watch videos and stuff and comment, whatever. Still my primary account. And like I said, this is not the original. The original does exist in some form. Everything got wiped, though. The only thing still there is the date of creation. And the picture that I had as my profile picture. But, that's not that important anymore. It's been almost 10 years since I got banned on that one, so. Funny that I managed to get it back in some capacity, though. I do think that's nice. I'm glad that I did manage that, even if it was by accident. But, yeah, even though this isn't that one, it still means a lot to me. I made friends through here. lost friends through here. You know, this channel alone has been up for 8 years, which, again, is crazy to me because I remember making it. But yeah, when I made my first YouTube channel, I was sitting in my living room using a shit-ass Chromebook laptop. You know, I made that first channel. I made that leap. And I posted to it probably just about every day that I could from August until December. What is that, like 3-4 months? And, you know, that sounds like a short amount of time, and it really was in the grand scheme. But, you know, that alone had enough of an impact on me to keep me creating. And I think that's really nice. And again, I don't post a lot anymore. Not to YouTube anyway. But, you know, I still draw all the time. You know, I did Art Fight this year. I did almost 60 attacks, which is crazy. You know, and I try to post my art to Instagram. It's kind of a chore anymore to do that. So I usually end up being a little late to doing that. But, you know, for the most part, I don't really draw for an audience anymore. I just draw for myself, and that's fine. You know, I've taken a few commissions here and there, not very often. Nothing too big, really. But, you know, I just feel like it's important to remember where you came from and what you started with. And, you know, obviously I'd been drawing before I started doing my YouTube channel stuff, but there's a fucking gnat flying around my head right now. I gotta pause this. I gotta pause you. Why don't you let me do that? Alright, the bastard won't land anywhere that's not my phone, so I guess I'll get him later. But anyway, I do think that it is important to know, you know, where you came from. And, you know, I was drawing, I don't know how long I was drawing before I started that YouTube channel. I know it was a little while at least, like a few years. I've always, you know, loved to draw, be creative, stuff like that. You know, I liked writing for a time. I didn't really keep up with that one too much, but I'd like to get back into it at some point if I ever get the chance. I still make stories for my OCs and stuff. Not very often, but sometimes. It's usually my Warrior Cats OCs, because, you know, believe it or not, Warrior Cats had a also big impact on my life. Would you believe it? But, yeah. You know, I made that channel, and then, then when that one got banned, I, kind of freaked the fuck out and made, lots and lots of different ones. So, I had the XX Roses and Stripes XX account, which is named that way because I thought, A, it would look cool, and B, it would make me seem older, because all the older people had usernames like that. I didn't know what a gamer tag was at the time. But, so that was my first animation-centric channel, I suppose I could say. Art, animation, whatever, stuff like that. It was about all that I would post to that one, because what I did after I got my first channel terminated was I made different channels for, like, every thing that I was doing on there. I had one for gaming, I had one for art, I had one for the little slideshow videos, which I still post to this day. You know, so I tried to kind of put my eggs in different baskets so that if I got banned again, I wouldn't lose everything. Which is not a bad idea for being 11 at that point, about 12. You know? So, good on me for that regard. But, yeah, to this day, I still kind of employ that keep your eggs in different baskets mentality. You know, I've got Mint Leaf Cakes, which is, for the most part, just an art channel. Like I said, I've still got that slideshow video channel. I think that's a fun thing to do in my off time. I've got, just a channel for shit posts. I got a channel that I put Animal Jam stuff on. Just keeping it all in its own little bubbles. I think that just works out better for me personally. I don't have to have everything all on the same channel, in the same box, I suppose, box of people. But, that's not that important, I guess. But, it's part of my history. I like to acknowledge that. And then to circle back to, what being on YouTube has brought me, I've made friends here, and I've been here long enough to lose them too. Starting something like this at the age of 11, and not coming from the greatest living situation, it makes you not so great of a person sometimes. So, I'll admit that while I have had, some good friendships and stuff come from having my YouTube channels, I've also been an asshole, to put it lightly. I feel like on a bigger level, I think that, I haven't done too terrible of things, nothing that out of the ordinary, and just kind of being a dick and a bad friend. But, I'm not here to air out those grievances, just, it's part of my history. I'm not gonna hide that. I'd like to think that I have grown in those 10 years and changed for the better, and, you move on. You miss those connections, but you move on. Let me think. I never script any of these. But, who cares? It's probably only going to be like 5 of you maybe that watch this anyway, so it's not a big deal. Besides, some people might like to hear just unscripted rambling. I don't really know. I know I do sometimes. But, yeah, through the last 10 years, and a lot has changed. A lot has changed. When I started that first YouTube channel, YouTube was still, you still had to have a Google Plus account to make YouTube, to make a YouTube channel. Which is insane to say, because Google Plus has been dead for, I think, about 6 years now. I think 2019 is when they shut that down. And I made my first channel when that was still mandatory. At least I think it was still mandatory. At the very least, it was still very linked. If you had a YouTube channel and you went into your, when you're, fuck, I don't know how to word it. When you're on, the home page and you have your little icon up in the top right and you click on it and it tells you, your channel name and, your email, instead of your email, it'd have, your Google Plus, it would have your little plus name. It'd have, I think it was, a plus sign and then just, whatever your username on Google Plus was. Either that or it was a plus sign and then your email. I don't really remember for sure. I'd have to look at it. But, shit changes. Goddamn. And the time fucking flies, because it's shit, it's been 10 years? I'm a full adult at this point. I'm fucking 21. I can drink, gamble, smoke. I don't care. I don't do any of that. But, I could if I wanted to. But yeah, a lot has changed. Not only with YouTube, but also with just the internet at a wider scale. And, I'm sure, if you're not living under a rock, which if you're here, you're probably not, if you have heard, there's been a lot of pushing for internet censorship lately, and today, ironically enough, is the day that YouTube is implementing their AI detection thing to determine whether they think you are a child or not. Irregardless of when your channel was made or what you have your birthday set to, they are going to use AI to check what you watch, shit like that, and they are going to determine for you whether you are an adult or not. Personally, I think that is a little ridiculous. I prefer it over giving them my ID. However, if I have to be labeled as a minor, and the only way to dispute that is to give them your ID, that's kind of where the problem arises. At least for me. I don't know how everybody feels about this. I am only one person. But, personally, I don't want to give my ID to some unknown entity over the internet, because, believe me, I have my own history of getting my passwords breached. It happens to this day. I just got my Reddit account compromised. I got fucking my Microsoft account deleted because they all had the same password. Which I don't really care about either of those. I don't use Reddit. The only thing my Microsoft account did for me was Minecraft, and I don't even play that, really. So, not a huge deal for those specifically, but, keep your passwords safe. You might want to use some different ones, if you don't. So, take it from me. The guy that's gotten their passwords stolen time and time again. If I go into my Google account and I look at my password health, I think it's 141 breach passwords. And most of them are probably the same one. So, keep your secret safe. But that is definitely a concern because, there's data breaches probably every single day on so many different websites. I couldn't even begin to fucking tell you. And if they're going to be storing IDs on these third-party websites, because most if not all of what I've been hearing about has been through third-party. If these third parties are going to be storing everybody's fucking identification, what happens when they get breached? You're fucked. It's not going to have your social security number probably, but that's still your ID. You don't know what people could do with that. That's fucking crazy. I don't want to be giving some random company my fucking ID. I didn't even like doing it for background checks. I don't even know if I gave my ID for background check, actually. I think that was just inserting info. But either way, or maybe I did. I don't know. It was for fucking Domino's Pizza who decided to ghost me, so I don't give a fuck. But, point being there, the internet is changing. And the internet is an ever-evolving and ever-changing thing. And, I understand that. I think most people understand that. We all expect changes to come over time. But, these ones are... I'm not too on board with that. I was a kid with unsupervised, for the most part, internet access. And I say for the most part because when I first was allowed to have internet and got my Chromebook, it was strictly for school stuff, and I wasn't supposed to be doing anything else. But, neglectful mother addicted to drugs did not watch the child carefully enough. So I started watching YouTube. And, up until the point of 10 years ago today, I did not have a channel, so I couldn't comment or anything. I would just watch. And let me fucking tell you, I watched so much Is It a Good Idea to Microwave This? And I rewatched some of those, last month? Yeah, last month. They still hold up. They're still fucking bangers 20 years later. I guess not quite 20 years, like 18. I think it started in 2007. But, point being, I was an unsupervised child. You know, I saw stuff on the internet that I shouldn't have seen at a young age. Hell, I saw the first porn video of my life when I was 10. I didn't even have a YouTube account at that point. But I understand the potential dangers that being a child on the internet can bring. However, I do not personally think that the submitting your identification to some random third party out in the middle of who God fucking knows where, to just have your ID on hand, probably stored in a server, probably with a shitty password that can be easily broken into by whatever fucking nefarious party, and then just taken. I mean, you don't fucking know. I don't think that is the answer. I'm one guy. I don't know everything. But it's just concerning, because if everybody's going to have to be submitting ID to prove that they are who they are, and they are the age that they say they are, it erodes your privacy, like, substantially. Almost entirely. At least in regards to the people above you, the government, the people that run these websites, the people that run the third-party ID keepers. I don't know what to call them, but, it's concerning if you care anything about your privacy. Now, obviously, using websites like YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, you are giving up a level of your privacy because, they gotta serve you ads and shit to make money. And, I think probably not most people, but I think a decent portion of people using these services understand that. And, we will willingly choose to give up that privacy, to certain degrees, to use the services. Because just about everybody uses these. And if you want to stay in touch with anyone, that's just how people do it these days, and you kind of can't get away from it at this point. That fucking gnat is around me again. But, it's just a level of acceptance that we've been doing for a long time now. But the unfortunate thing about that is that a lot of people that aren't tuned into this are probably not going to understand how poor of a decision it would be to give your identification up. People like to think of it as, well, I don't have anything to hide. It isn't about that. It's not about whether you have something to hide. It's about your right to privacy. And, I think this is a bit of a step too far. And again, I was an unsupervised child on the internet, but do you know how you fix having unsupervised children on the internet finding things that they aren't supposed to? You supervise them. You parent. That is what you signed up for. Sorry, I thought of that meme that's like, of course you have pronouns, dipshit, it came free with your fucking language. Of course you have responsibilities, dipshit, it came free with your having a child. Wouldn't you think? But no. Most people don't think that way. They just give the kid the iPad, give the kid the iPhone, give him Cocomelon, give him fucking brain rot. I don't know. And again, I'm not saying that I'm above that. I probably had my own age of brain rot. But, it's not really the kid's fault in that case. It's not really the kid's fault, period. It is on the parent. And I think the government's trying to step in and parent for the parents is an overall bad thing for everybody. Because not only are you going to get false positives on adults being children and then having to send in your ID to prove that you're not a child, you're also going to get, probably kids that get through the system with false negatives and they're labeled as adults. That's not a child. They watched a video about tools or something like that. I don't fucking know. But, that also is a little concerning because then you just get free reign. which, already, from what I understand, being labeled as an adult will just keep YouTube the same way that it is currently. And that's fine, but, I mean, already if we have kids on YouTube, I don't personally think that is the greatest thing. Because at least when I was, a kid growing up with a YouTube channel, I didn't run into a ton of trouble, but I had, a decent amount of, mean comments, harassment. There was one time that I was doing a live stream back when Google Hangouts was still a thing. Oh my god. Back when you could still stream through Google Hangouts, and my Google Hangouts stream got hacked, and then they showed porn. Ugh. And that was terrible, because that was an Animal Jam stream. I had people as young as 10, maybe younger in there. And I felt bad, but, it wasn't anything I could have controlled. I didn't use Hangouts to stream after that, though, I'll tell you that. Switched to OBS real quick. Which is a good software, by the way. Use OBS if you ever want to do any streaming. At least in my opinion. It's free. It's easy. Apart from that, though. I just think, A, it's not secure enough, and B, because of the insecurity of it, everybody is at risk. Because we've also seen people, using Gary's mod to, do the facial recognition shit. And also, I don't want to have to do the fucking facial recognition thing because A, waste of my time. B, I don't need you to have my fucking face in a database. Again, it's just like the ID thing. I don't want some third party or whatever to be having fucking shit of my face. If that is stored in a server and that gets hacked, you could fucking deep fake. You could do a lot of shit. Just a lot of shit that is just unacceptable to me. And you're seeing it with stupid shit, too. It's not even just, porn or anything. It's fucking Wikipedia. It's fucking Spotify. Why do I need age identification for that? It doesn't make sense. Oh, am I going to hear the word fuck in a song? Oh, we can't let that happen to the kids. Oh my god. And this is more of an issue in the UK and Australia, from what I believe. But the YouTube thing is coming to the United States, so I wanted to bring that up and talk about that. I don't really... I'm not one that commonly makes my opinions widely known. Most of what I have been, sharing about this has been through a private Twitter account. And only certain people are in there. My close friends, for the most part. But I do think that is a important thing to talk about and to know about, is just the fact that these companies and these governments are, in my opinion, making the wrong choices. And I think that we should all be aware of such things. I'm not gonna necessarily say, I'm not gonna tinfoil hat it and be like, you need to get off the internet, you can't trust anybody anymore. I mean, you couldn't trust them to begin with. And like I said, you kind of have to go into that with a bit of knowledge that, you're giving up some of your privacy, some of your freedom to use these platforms. And, it's not like anything has changed in that regard. It is just getting worse. It was never going to get any better, probably, but it is getting worse. But I do think that if it is something that is concerning to you, look into removing as much of the equation as possible. I think that is a good idea for the moment, because I personally worry that we are going to fall into a censorship hole. I think we're already going down that rabbit hole because, again, if you haven't heard, there has been a lot of game censorship going on for, started with NSFW games. I heard that there was like a horror game or something that got taken down because of it, but Steam and itch.io, maybe more, not sure, I've only heard of those two, but they got pressured by payment processors, who were pressured by a quote-unquote activism group, which they have their own history. You can look into that if you feel so inclined. But they were pressured to delist like a bunch of NSFW stuff. And that's where this all kind of started coming to a head, is that broke, and then all of a sudden all sorts of different censorship stuff and age verification stuff started popping up. And, I'm worried that it's going to extend to more than just NSFW, because again, if you're tuned into this, you've probably heard about this already. But I have a worry that it's going to just extend to LGBT content and shit like that, and anything that dissents against what the government wants you to know, wants you to hear, wants you to say. I don't think the First Amendment exists anymore in the form that it used to. I'm no expert, but they're rewriting fucking history on the Stonewall website, fucking taking it from LGBTQ to just LGB to just lesbians and gays. And soon enough, that's probably all going to be gone. They're probably just going to take down the whole fucking Stonewall site. At that rate. There's already petitions to get rid of the fucking same-sex marriage shit here. I don't think that's going to stick just to reality. I think that's going to come to the internet too. Because why wouldn't it? Why would they want you to have any form of escape? Because, and also, not only that, but, the people that are kind of behind this sort of shit, they're gonna view being gay or trans as being pornographic. So many people already do. So, of course they're gonna probably try to lump that in there. I'm sure they are. I'm sure that's gonna happen. I have no doubt. I mean, we're already where we are. I don't have a doubt about anything anymore. Really. I mean, fuck. How far are we gonna go? Probably pretty far. But this is unfortunately the mindset that I have to come to my 10th YouTube anniversary with. Which is unfortunate. And it is very unfortunate that it happened to be on this day that they started implementing the YouTube shit. But I wanted to talk about it. I wanted to bring it up. And, I was going to make a little 10th anniversary video regardless anyways, but I think now is extra. It's extra needed. People need to speak up about it, even if it's someone small like me. But I should probably stop the recording because I haven't eaten yet, and it is 10 in the morning, and I've been up for like 3 hours. So I need to eat. I'm a little hungry. But yeah, I guess give me your opinions if you want. Don't if you don't want to. I'm gonna leave it off with switch to physical media as much as you can. Switch to offline as much as you can if you feel like it is something that is worrisome to you. I've got my iPod for music. I'm in the process of getting that all filled in because God knows I have a lot of music in my Spotify playlist. It's gonna take a while. Get physical games, preserve anything that you can. I know that a lot of the gaming companies don't really want to fund physical anymore. That's why we have digital-only consoles. That's why we got fucking game key cards. Shit like that. I got DVDs. I bought a DVD player. I get rid of streaming as much as you can. I know a lot of new stuff
It's probably streaming only, but, as much as you can. It's not like you gotta cut everything out of your life, but as much as you can. Shit like that. Shit like that. And if you don't need it to be something that's on the internet, don't do it. You don't need you don't need an Amazon Alexa to have an alarm clock. Yes, I'm calling out you, Jacoby. He doesn't do that anymore. The Alexa broke. But thank God, because I hated that thing. They're always fucking listening to you, which is, I don't like that. I don't care for that. The phone is probably also listening to me at all times, but, it is what it is. There's no way for me to get away from that. It's how my job communicates with me. But, do what you can. Do what you're able. Obviously, there's going to be limitations, and I understand that. I also have my own limitations. There's a reason I'm making this video right now. I'm not going to leave YouTube. But, yeah. I hate to end it on a melancholy note. I'm happy to have had YouTube channels for the last 10 years. I've really enjoyed most of that time. And I really cherish what I did get out of it, when I was still active and everything, I cherish my friends, I cherish my old stuff that I still have up, I cherish what I've made of it. Not what it is, but what I have made of it. I think that's more important than any platform. It's the memories that you make and the people that you meet. I think that's the most important of all. But yeah, I hope you guys are all having a good time in your lives. I know some of you are, probably most of you are just my friends. So, if you're here, stop in, say hi. Leave me a comment if you want. Catch up with me. I love catching up with my friends, even if I don't talk to you guys a lot. Life gets busy. I'm sure it's the same for everybody else. But, yeah. Just, leave your thoughts if you want to. Don't if you don't. I don't mind. And happy 10 years to me.